Hey, we're trying. We're trying, buddy. We're trying.
No
Shout
doubt.
out to Chief.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, for sure. How you
What's
doing, my
what
friend?
what's going on? Are you ready for some football?
Am I ready for some football? Listen, I mean, for a guy that does content creation like you guys during the off season for college football, I mean, as fans, college football season is great. The excitement builds up throughout the entire year, all that good stuff. But as content creators, there is nothing better than knowing that college football is back because that means everything that we talk about during the week, on the weekends, whatever, the content is there. All this, like, there is no more off-season talk or whatever it is, man. Like, we have the content. We can talk about games. We talk about legitimate stuff. There's no more speculation.
That's all. So, have you been out to practice at all yet in Athens? I know Kirby was chatting a little bit with the media. We talked a little bit early on about that. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the Dogs getting going this week.
Yeah, I haven't made it out to practice yet. I know they had first practice availability this past week. I want to say on Thursday. My head man, Brooks Austin, he was there taking care of all that stuff for us. I know he was at practice, but no, I haven't been out to practice. But everything that I've heard out of practice sounds good. I know Kirby said that this is the healthiest that they have been in in fall camp that since he's been there. Sounds like all the names that you would want to are flashing right now. Hearing a lot of good things out of most position groups. So everything, by all accounts, right now, it sounds like things are going pretty good for the Dogs.
Yeah. Are you shocked to hear?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I got one more. Are you shocked? Like I'm still hearing Ryan Puglisi talking about being the quarterback, like having this quarterback competition. Is that just a little fun for fall camp, or do you really think Ryan's really pushing Gunner? I don't see it, but I trust you, my friend. So I kind of want to get your thought.
Yeah, I think it's Gunner's job. I think that Kirby Smart bringing Gunner Stockton to SEC Media Days, while he didn't actually say Gunner is his starter while he was there, I think that kind of signifies this is Gunner's team. He's our guy. And I thought it was also interesting that at SEC Media Days that Kirby kind of hinted at that Gunner is going to be the starter this season, but that he has to still earn it. So like there's some type of leash there with Gunner, where in other words, like there is a point in time where they might yank Gunner out of the game and Puglisi gets put in. I don't know what that is. Like, I don't know what Gunner would have to do to get pulled out of a game. But by all accounts, this is Gunner Stockton's team. He is going to be the starter this year. And if he continues to play well this year, then he will be the starter for the remainder of the season. But, I mean, Puglisi is certainly in the mix somewhat. I mean, he's a talented guy, but it's Gunner's team. He's a starter.
So, Gunner Stockton, I think, is the starter, but who's the star of the team? When we think about the Georgia Bulldogs in 2025, and we look back, whose name's gonna run through our minds? Whose face are we gonna see? Who's gonna be making the play that is just stuck in the back of our minds? I'll let you talk, and then we'll kind of fill in some thoughts there. But is there anybody that jumps off the page to you right now in fall camp?
I think that there's a couple of options offensively speaking. I think that Nate Frazier kind of fits the star role. I think Nate fits it for multiple reasons. I think that he has the personality that the fan base is going to gravitate towards. I think people have already picked up on that. He's on social media all the time. Like, people know who Nate Frazier is, so he's that familiar name. But I think obviously he's going to be a starting running back this year for them. He's going to be the main focal point, or one of the main focal points of this offense. So he's going to be a familiar name. The wide receiver room, I think that there's some options. I just don't know if I can really circle in on one person because they brought in multiple bodies this offseason. You're getting some guys back like Colby Young, who really didn't play all that much last year. But the three guys that I would mention there are Zachariah Branch, for starters, the USC transfer. It sounds like he's going to be a big part of this offense. And then the two X receivers. And this is one of the reasons why I can't really narrow it down. It's Noah Thomas and Colby Young. They're both the X receivers at Georgia right now, two big body guys. I've been hearing phenomenal things about Noah Thomas so far, but either one of those guys I could see having a huge season for Georgia, and maybe they both do. Maybe Georgia kind of morphs into this offense where they got both of them on the field. I just don't know what they're going to do, but those names be the ones that are really circling on. But I think that Nate Frazier's like the for sure thing. Like, that guy's going to be a star in this offense.
I'm excited to see what Dylan Bell does. I always feel like he's got like that X factor. He can play a little running back. He can go receiver. Like, to me, like, he seems like that guy who can just and Bobo can do some good things. Like, listen, I'm going to say something positive about Bobo. Rob always yells at me because I'm always very hard on Bobo. But to me, like, Bell is that guy that I feel like can be the X factor, and especially now with that other talent that we have now at wide receiver with Frazier in the backfield. I'm really kind of excited to see kind of what we get out of him with year 3 because I feel like we've gotten flashes, but nothing consistent.
And I think that excitement is completely warranted because I've seen some people say some pretty harsh things about Dylan Bell this offseason, and I get it. Like, he had some massive drops last year, but who in the wide receiver room didn't have some massive drops last year? I mean, it just kind of felt like the unit collectively just wasn't on their A game last year, and Dylan Bell was included in that mix, but Dylan Bell got put in a really tough spot last year because, as I mentioned, Colby Young didn't get to play the entire season last year because he got into some trouble, and there was no big-bodied wide receiver on that roster. There was no true X receiver that Georgia could go to, and so Dylan Bell was the next guy up, and he got plugged there, and that's not what he needs to be. Dylan Bell is the guy that, hey, we can play him at X, we can play him at Y, or we can play him at Z, we can put him in the slot, we can do all these things, we can even put him in the backfield. But as soon as Georgia didn't have an X that they could lean on last year, Dylan Bell had to stay there because that's just all they had. That's the only person they could plug into there. So this year, I think you'll see Bobo move him around a lot and really get that X factor part of him, that Swiss Army knife style play style that we've seen from Dylan Bell, like we saw in 2023.
Love it.
Yeah, I think, I've been on the record a couple times saying I think Nate Frazier ends up top 3 backs in the country. Bobo's going to give him the ball. I think he's talented enough that there's a potential, if Georgia has the year that the fans in Athens would want them to have, that he leads the league in rushing. But we won't. I'll pull back on those reins a little bit and say that I think he has the potential to do that, but we'll see if he actually gets it done. So what are the concerns? Let's flip this thing on its head. We got a lot of good things to say, but what are the things we need to watch out for in terms of the Dogs?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing that jumps off the page for people is the offensive line. You replace a good number of starters. But I think that while we say that, I think that Georgia at least feels good about who they have, because while they are putting in new starters, there's still some familiar names like Monroe Freeling and Ernest Green are both returning this year. I don't care what you think about Ernest Green or Monroe Freeling. Those are 2 returning starters for you this year. You got to look at Drew Bobo last year, who's going to be the starting center. He filled in for Jared Wilson when he was banged up a little bit. Micah Morris has been constantly rotated in throughout games during his career. He's going to be a starter. And then you get to choose from the likes of Michael Unai or Daniel Calhoun or Juan Gaston, the true freshman. I think Juan Gaston is going to force the coaching staff to play him this year. So I think they are comfortable where they're at. I would flip to the defensive side of the ball and start with one nose tackle, because Xavier McLeod, who is a transfer from South Carolina, he transferred in last year, got a little bit of playing time, was also banged up a little bit. He's going to be the starting nose tackle this year. The depth is thin there, though. They're still trying to figure out, like, who do we have behind him? I think Nnamdi Ogboko is a solid answer to that, but we got to fill some people out there, because Kristen Miller, well, I think he could play nose tackle. I don't want him at nose tackle. I want Kristen Miller at defensive tackle. Jordan Hall is not big enough to play nose tackle. So I think you got to figure out some things there interior defensively. I think there's a little bit of questions, just kind of figuring out, like, who do we actually trust to play here? But I think that the guys that you have up top are going to be fine. And then going to the secondary, it's all about finding out who's going to play next to KJ Bolden, because KJ Bolden is a star. He's one of these up and coming Georgia defensive studs that's going to play in the NFL, going to play on Sundays, all that great stuff. But is it going to be Ja'Cory Thomas, who's been there for 5 years? Is he just going to lock it down, or is it going to be one of these 4 transfers that they brought in? What it indicates to me is I think Zion Branch is the one that's really on his heels, and I think that there's an opportunity where Zion Branch may not start the year, because Kirby has a thing where he keeps the veteran guy and he lets him stay in that starting role. But I think by game 4 of the season, I would not be shocked if it's Zion Branch and KJ Bolden back there. But those are like the 2 big questions on defense that I would really be circling, paying attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so go ahead, Craig. Got any more black and red to talk about? Because I'm itching to turn this conversation.
Well, I just had one. You know who'd look really good next to KJ Bolden?
Who's that?
Caleb Downs.
Oh, yeah. But what could have been? What could have been?
Seriously. What happened?
Okay. All right. We'll get you a tissue so you can cry about it later.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Get us 2. I want Jonathan to have one, too.
All right. Let's look at Knoxville for just a minute, okay? Because I think that there's a lot of questions when it comes to Tennessee. Obviously, you lose Nico. We can talk that story to death. It is what it is at this point. Boo Carter is now there. Josh Heupel said it this week that he's still got a couple things to do to be able to be active, but he is on the team. He's present. All that thing is there. So, Craig would phrase this as a rocky start to 2025 on Rocky Top, right?
Probably have something like that coming out this week.
Yeah, look out for it. Look out for it, everybody. Enter Joey Aguilar. Athletic, can move around. I think that Heupel needs that. My question is, when the SEC defensive fronts or really front sevens get this pass rush going, how is Aguilar going to respond to that? Is he going to be able to stand in and make the throws that he needs to throw? Can he be accurate with the football? All that's a question mark for me. When you look at just kind of overall dissect that program as we head into 2025, what's the biggest thing that jumps off the page to you? Positive, negative? If we were doing just a temp check on them, where do you feel like they land? Because I feel like there's really mixed reviews across the country right now.
Yeah, I'm super skeptical of what this season is going to look like for Tennessee because I could see it going multiple ways. I could see them being 9-3, 8-4 this year, just kind of turning into like a pretty good year. Like all things considered, what has happened, I think if you turned into 9-3 and 8-4, I think people would be pretty happy up in Knoxville. I could also see this thing going south because I have some major questions about what is happening with this team and what has happened with this team. I mean, you talked about one of them, Nico. He enters a transfer portal. He goes to UCLA over hostile negotiations, or whether it's because the roster wasn't talented enough. Whatever storyline you want to believe there, your starting quarterback left your roster at the end of spring camp. This wasn't even in January. This was at the end of spring camp. So you have that. Mike Matthews, who's supposed to be a starting wide receiver for them, he was flirting with the transfer portal earlier this year. Boo Carter was flirting with the transfer portal this year. And then on top of that, you want to bring in Boo Carter missing team meetings and all this other stuff that happened over the last couple of weeks to the point where Josh Heupel has to provide a statement on the first day of fall camp and talk about how Boo Carter's still with the team, but he has to earn his right back onto the field and he has to check all these boxes. I don't know what is happening up in Tennessee, but I know this. I know that Josh Heupel tried to do the right thing. I thought Josh Heupel was portraying the right message when they said, Nico, you can take your crap and you can take it with you to UCLA because we're not doing this. That's not the culture here. We care about the T. We care about the volunteers, all that good stuff. But when I hear stuff like Boo Carter, all this weird information, like you don't know what to believe or whatever, but at the bottom line, he's having to earn his way back onto the field because he's missing team meetings, a guy that's supposed to be a star defensive player for you. I don't know if there's going to be unity for this team, and that's why I see it potentially going south. Like if we get into week 6 and Tennessee is 2-4 or 3-3, whatever you want to call it, like they're on track to lose more games than they would like to have. Is this team going to stay together or is it just going to fall apart? Because what I see from the outside as an outsider is a bunch of people that's thinking about themselves. I don't know if there is this team chemistry or this bond here together. It seems like there's a lot of people that don't know what to do and don't know if they're fully bought into this program. So I'm very skeptical about what's happening at Tennessee.
So listen to this. You talk about Mike Matthews in the roster. Report today from Adam Sparks from Knox News. I'll just read it to you. Mike Matthews is at practice, but not going through wide receiver drills. Chris Brazzell still limited due to injury. You can literally count Tennessee's healthy scholarship receivers 5 on one hand, and 4 of those 5 have never played a college snap. Is this Oklahoma from 2024? Who is catching the football?
I don't know.
That's a problem. That's a problem.
Especially because what they like to do offensively, right? Like you need a couple of receivers.
I think they're going to be able to run the ball because the offensive line, I think, is a strength for them. But, oh, my goodness, let them have an injury or something go wrong up front, and this really does get off the tracks fast because we don't know who's going to be under center, really. I mean, I guess it's going to be Joey Aguilar, but what's he going to bring and how tight's the leash there? How quickly do you pull it and you go to one of these younger guys? But it's just like Jackson Arnold last year. I don't think Jackson Arnold was as bad as what he was portrayed to be, but he gets the axe and you put Hawkins in the game and the whole thing back and forth because there's nobody. At least you should have protection up front at Tennessee, so it's not going to be fully as bad as what it was there. But if they don't get this wide receiving core healthy, or some of these younger guys don't step up, I don't see this offense being able to get off the ground very much.
Is there a bright spot there in Tennessee? Like is there anything that
recruiting?
Fans, right. I'm just talking.
They're on a heater.
We're talking on the field. Right?
They're on a heater. I mean, recruiting. That's where I would go.
That's the other thing about Tennessee. Like, I know I just routed off a bunch of things that have been happening off the field for this program, but when I look on the field, I don't see a whole lot that really piques my interest. Now, I think that they have some really solid defensive players on their roster. You know, everybody's high on Jermon McCoy, but he's going to be missing games this year. You know, he suffered a knee injury in January, tore his ACL. So who knows when he's going to be fully healthy. Boo Carter is going to be a big player for them. Anthony Joseph's the edge rusher. He's going to be a big player for them. But I look offensively, like the somewhat bread and butter of this Tennessee program since Josh Heupel got there. I mean, quarterback is still kind of up in the air. I like Peyton Lewis. I like Deshaun Bishop, but I think that there's still some room to grow for those guys. I think you saw that last year when Dylan Sampson was banged up, especially in the playoff game when they had to rely on those two guys. I don't know what that looks like for them. And then the wide receiver room, I mean, that is just a hodgepodge mess right now because it'd be one thing if Mike Matthews, as a true freshman last year, as a former 5-star, came in and he gave you like 20 receptions for 280 yards or 300 yards or something along those lines. At least got a good amount of burn. But Mike Matthews is coming into this year very inexperienced, didn't get a whole lot of playing time last year. And now you're talking about him missing practice and a bunch of other wide receivers missing practice. Like, I just don't know if there's a whole lot for me to really buy into for this Tennessee program. But what I can buy into is Josh Heupel, because I think that Josh Heupel is a really good football coach. He seems to adapt in ways that puts his program in the best position to win. Because last year, I mean, they ran the ball to death, and that's how they found a way to win games. It wasn't because Nico was slinging it for 300 yards every single game. It's because they had a really successful run game. So if Bishop and Peyton Lewis are that answer for them this year, I think they'll be fine. But I just don't really know too much about this offense because I think there's a few too many questions for me.
I feel like you were talking about, at the start of our conversation as content creators, like we can't wait for football to get going. You got to feel like Heupel's the same way. Because,
sure.
I mean, if we're having this conversation first week of December, Tennessee's like on the rise, right? I mean, they made the playoff, they're going, then they get blown out in Columbus, they're losing, and then you have this player turmoil. And it's like, it can make sense. And Heupel has done a good job outside of playing Georgia. Heupel has done a good job. He's 500 against Alabama. I mean, that's saying something. They haven't had anybody like that in a long time. And I do feel like he's got an athletic director, one that handpicked him, and that's going to give him a chance. But here's the deal: we all know it. You've got to be in that 7, 8, or 9 win season if you're Tennessee, because anything less than that, you're going to get a lot of people on the phone not real happy.
Hey, Jonathan, you get to hang out for just one more second?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Lucas, let's go ahead and catch a break right here on SEC Sunday Night. We have Jonathan Williams here with some Bulldogs on SEC. All right, quick question on Tennessee. We've got College Football Forever and Chief YouTube's both over here with the question of who's going to have the breakout season for Tennessee. For either of you, do you see anybody on the roster that we're not talking about that we should be?
I feel like that their roster gets covered pretty well. Again, like if I had to pick somebody that's going to really break out, I'd pick one of the two running backs because I don't think it's going to be both of them having a breakout year because Tennessee has never gone about being like a rotation running back by commodity type of team. It's always been find our guy, and that's who we're going to give the most totes to. So whoever wins that kind of battle between Deshaun Bishop and Peyton Lewis, that's who I'm going to give it to because I think that's how they're going to have to win football games this year. I think that's where their success is going to be. It's going to be running the football. So those were the two names I would really kind of highlight right now.
I agree with you. I do think with the receiving core being a little bit wide open as it stands right now, I think Bray Staley has a real opportunity to catch a lot of balls if he's going to step into that role. Young player, but a real opportunity for him, especially with Matthews and Brazel. Even if they are the top two guys, and as it stands right now, like we don't really know how that's going to shake out, but one would assume he could still step into that third receiver role and be somebody who, in that Heupel offense, if they can get it going, becomes somebody that gets some run. All right. Jonathan Williams here from Bulldogs on SI with us on SEC Sunday Night Live on the Chief Sports Network every Sunday at 8 p.m. Let's go ahead and throw up that strength of schedule graphic. CBS Sports, Jonathan, did this metric where they are measuring the strength of schedules of every SEC school. This is conference. So as you look at this list, it's a little bit jarring to me just to kind of look at where some of these teams fall. And I think it also helps us evaluate how we think they're going to finish and the conversation of who is overrated or underrated. Craig, I know you have some thoughts if you want to kick us off, but who is the team that you highlight here that you think maybe you're most shocked that they landed? They're too high, they're too low. I mean, you can read the descriptions if you go look at Brandon Marcello put this out, so you can kind of read and see. I trust the way that they evaluated them. I'm not disputing it necessarily. But there are some things that are shocking. Go ahead. Who jumps off to you?
My biggest one is number 11, Auburn. I'm a big Auburn fan, always waving the War Damn Eagle flag. But you look at the month of September, at Baylor, at Texas, home against Oklahoma. My goodness, we could have an interim head coach on the Plains before long with them. So to me, 11, because I think is that sneaky part of that first part, I think is
Well, you
most
see,
shocking.
what you need to know though, the schedule has a lot of length and girth in this league, and so if you get past September, that's where it really gets them down the list to 11. All right, Jonathan. Anybody that jumps off to you here that's just like, I mean, this is fresh for you, right? Is this the first time you're seeing this?
No, I mean it's
Or
not.
did he send it to you?
We wrote articles on it, all that good stuff. You know, we got to pay the bills in the off season too. But just a couple of things. One, Georgia being at 14, being classified as a third easiest schedule in the SEC. I understand that they have a lot of home games. I think they only have 3 true road games this year. Part of the reason because Georgia Tech is at a neutral site this year in Atlanta. But like, you still got Texas on the schedule. You still have Alabama on the schedule. Ole Miss. You got Tennessee on the road. You got Florida halfway through the year. Like, those are 5 really solid SEC opponents. And I don't. To me, that is not third worst in the conference. Like, for me, I think Texas has one of the easiest conference schedules. I remember last year talking about this, how Greg Sankey kind of rolled out the red carpet for them. They have the road trip to Athens this year. But if I remember correctly, a lot of their opponents are things like Arkansas is on the schedule, Vanderbilt's on the schedule. I know they have Florida on the schedule as well, Oklahoma, of course. Again, a solid bunch of opponents, but that doesn't stack up to what Georgia has, in my opinion. South Carolina has one of the hardest conference schedules, I think, out of anybody this year. If you look at the second half of South Carolina's schedule, it's like back-to-back weeks of like Oklahoma, LSU, Ole Miss is in there, Alabama's in there. Yeah. It's those teams. So you're telling me that they have just the 4th easiest schedule in the like? There's no way. I'm sorry. I'm just not buying that at all. So maybe this is taking into account like how bad Mississippi State is compared to how good the rest of the conference is, and by that margin, yeah, sure, they have the second hardest schedule in the SEC. But I think that I would kind of switch some things around a little bit. But yeah, South Carolina would be the biggest nitpick for me. Like, they deserve to be in the top 5, in my opinion.
Yeah, I also think if I can throw one more in here, Florida's got to be up there more. Florida's got one of the most difficult schedules. You know, they've got the China Doll at quarterback this year that may or may not be playing depending on what's happening. So
that was nice.
You know, I think
I like that. China Doll. Write it up.
Yeah.
Trademark it. Call Joyce if she wants to put it on a hat.
Put it on a hat. Yeah. What about you, buddy? You got one before we get out of here?
Honestly, Vanderbilt really sticks out to me because having them at number 1, whether they're at number 1 or not, it just speaks to there's some difficulty to their schedule. And I think that Pavia, although he's a great college player, we got to look at the depth of this roster overall and consider what are our expectations here. I think the expectations for Vanderbilt can become a little overinflated given how they played last year and some of the upsets that they walked into. They're not catching anybody by surprise this year. Everybody knows it's on tape. Okay, we completely know what you're going to do. And so when we're prepared for it coming in, you kind of saw that as the year played out even a little bit. Now, they're better than what they've been in years past. But if this is where we're at with them and the schedule stacks up like that, you could be looking at another 4-8, and then they just kind of fade back into being Vanderbilt. I don't have a lot of confidence in them to be in a bowl at the end of this thing. And so, you know, we're going to talk about them until we don't need to talk about them anymore or until they pull off something massive. Once again, my real question for them is the matchup with Auburn, because you've had this grouping of guys with Jerry Kill and Pavia and the whole crew taking down Hugh Freeze now at 2 different schools. Can they do it again?